Thinking we both experts, but we're not. They politically correct, but we're not. They might put their facts on check, but we're not. Personal growth is our shit, but we're not. Gonna coach you up to this, cause we're not. They say they're leaders, they're free thinkers, but we're not. Geeking, never ever tweaking, but we're not. We stay laughing, but we're not. But we're not. Insert label here.
And I am impatient Dirk right now. I'm trying to get all this shit to work.
We've been having some technical difficulties, though. And this is actually the third time I've done this intro. This session, so we're hoping it's the motherfucking charm.
At this fucking point. Jeez. Other than that, happy Sabbath, everybody. I hope you're relaxing, but knowing most of you people in the West, you guys are working hard on literally nothing and getting nowhere with it just to make ends meet.
Oh, my. Oh, my.
I'm coming out with the fucking punches
today. What a declaration. Yeah, I hope whoever's listening to this is doing the exact opposite. It's fucking not working that much and getting a lot of places.
Yeah. People always forget. I mean, they realized in the 30s after the Dust Bowl happened, everything needs to rest at some point. You can't work out every day, all day. You're going to die. You can't plant all day, every day. You're going to die. You can't work all day, every day. You're going to die. You just need to be able to put time and energy in the right places. But then people's issue is, oh, well, I don't know where to put it or allocate my resources. And you know what? That's your problem. Be efficient.
Well, I mean, you would die regardless. So whether you're
that's gonna happen no matter what. Yeah. You know what's funny though about that, because all of that stuff is learned.
Story.
Yeah. And all that stuff. That's again nurture versus nature. I mean, if are you taught that way? Did anybody teach you how to allocate your resources correctly? And correctly doesn't mean that there's a right or wrong. It just means that you feel fulfilled and satisfied. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Not your happiness, nothing else. Mm-hmm.
Who taught you how to allocate your resources? Where'd you learn this?
It's very interesting. So I got it from a few different people. Specifically, amongst my family members. I would say more specifically, my mother, my grandfather, and then a lot of my teachers. Of course, again, over here in the West, most of our father and mother figures come from our teachers because we spend most of our life with them more so than we do our parents, which is very interesting and odd, isn't it? It's a very odd thing.
But I mean, it's definitely it's not how I would do it.
No.
Like if I was growing a youth, I'd be their fucking teacher. Like I would not go let some rant. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I agree with you.
Like,
I agree with you.
But that's just through my experience dealing with most people. I found most people are clowns. So if you allow most people to teach your child, chances are they're going to be a clown too.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And then on top of that, it's there's this thing, of course, of am I even able to take care of my child in the way I want to, because I must go work and I must go provide necessities. But on top of that, I'm sacrificing time and energy into putting with them. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. It's like, well, then don't be part of the system or the society you're in. But then that's another catch-22. Most people don't have that ability to be able to leave or move if they already have roots and families. So it's very interesting. And then it just becomes like a self-sustaining cycle of inefficiencies, because then the kids end up doing that as well, and so on and so forth. And, it's the sins of the father over and over again. I think that actually slingshots us in, yeah?
Yes, fathers, parents, and teachings. So today, I'm asking Dirk, what does your relationship with your parents, both parents, separately, and I guess collectively, what does that say about you, and how does that speak to your character and who you are today, traumas included?
Of course. Well, I think just to start off with all things, as kids, especially as me, myself, and I, but I have a pretty large sample size of people who pretty much agree with this large scale. As children, we both want to be like our parents and completely, just trample their ideas and somehow transcend them. And I think that adds a lot of confusion in the buddingness of the adult versus the kid. That ideology that we've talked about before. And ultimately, we're all children who've just been injured by something. And our entire love language, what it is we hate, what it is we fear, all comes from our family. And more importantly, our moms and our dads. And more importantly, the individual who spent more time with us. And more importantly, the one who had no energy towards us at all. So this question's weird because it's a two-part question. It's my relationship with my mom being the person who is primarily there all the time, and then my relationship with my dad, who after divorce wasn't as hands-on as my mother. So I want to ask you to preface your answer as well before we start really getting into things. That was very general to start off with.
Yeah. So for me, I would say, my relationship with my parents definitely shows in my character. And, the characteristics I've had to, or the characteristics that I've grown through my dealings with them.
Yeah.
Because before moving out of their homes, a lot of my life was predicated upon living with them and kind of whether it's living up to a certain standard or being the type of person that they thought I should be versus the type of person they thought I should be versus the type of person I thought I should be or I wanted to be. So, that helps mold these characteristics, maybe even habits. I would say like certain, everything down to certain cleanliness habits. You'll see that although I might not have agreed with, I now uphold in a certain way. So,
can we stay there really
like
quickly?
You said,
So I think that's going to get me into my thing too. Things you didn't necessarily agree with, but now that's just you, and that's in your DNA. Things you vehemently opposed at first, but now it's you. But it's not really you. And how do you think that affects things?
It's not really.
Because isn't that interesting? The things we never wanted. Because I mean, as kids, we're rebels because we're new beings coming into this world. We're choosing and picking what it is we want to take on. But there's things that we're carrying with us that was never us in the first place. Isn't that kind of like... It's kind of scary and sad and also explains a lot of things, right?
Yeah. I mean, it...
Especially for me.
I think it's definitely kind of fun. I think it's definitely kind of funny when I look at how, when I was a kid, I thought both my parents actually were kind of clean freaks and they be like doing the most, but then now it's like I'm the same way, but it's like at this point there's nothing I can do about it. Like, what I'm saying? I just like shit clean.
Like, and it's funny because you would have never been that way, but that's a good problem, obviously. But it's like you would have maybe have never been that way if your parents weren't so on themselves and you with that cleanliness, and you, of course you're absorbing that.
Right.
And,
Right. So I think it speaks to habits and relationship habits, and how important that can be in your growth. So that kind of makes me think, and this is a little off topic, but that kind of makes me think when you look at a relationship like that and you see how you become that, it's easy if, say, you're in a romantic relationship that has a lot of back and forth, a lot of fighting. It's easy how that fighting that you probably weren't opposed to before you got in that relationship, but you've done it so much. If you do it enough, that shit will just become you, and that'll be the only way you can experience romantic relationships.
I think that's on target though, because you're talking about humans' ability to get into routine and habit in order to just make peace. So there's this time when you just like sort of give up and accept, and I think we had to do that a lot within our families, because I mean, first off, we can't be dictators of the house. We're little kids. They're giving us money, they're giving us food, but who is it to say, like, I mean, it wasn't until I became an adult and came out to the world that I thought my mom and dad knew everything, and they were right, and their way of living was the only way. And if I messed up, I was fearful of that because I'm afraid of being punished or disciplined because I'm from a military household. So, I was scared to get off track.
Right.
And that's really determined a lot of the way in which my personality is, and the way I talk to people, and the way I hang out, and the way I control things. And that's really learned. And it's like, who am I outside of that, though? I don't know, know?
Yeah. Yeah, and is there a way to connect with that version of you that lies outside of that? Because this has become so ingrained with who you know yourself to be now.
Yeah.
So it's like, is there a way to even... Because while I can acknowledge it, I feel like it would be very difficult for me to remove certain learned traits or learned habits. And not all, but some. When it comes to the way I talk, or maybe even the way I carry myself, I feel like those may be easier traits to look at it and analyze. But say it comes to the level of cleanliness that I think is acceptable, how would I go about, if I wanted to, which I don't, but how would I go about lowering that and just being, I could just say, fuck it, it's not a big deal, which is easy, but it's like, if I think, but that's unacceptable though, like, it's not that it's a big deal, but it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, is there really any place to maneuver? And I guess, looking back at you can always say, of course there is. Like, you can just literally just care less. It's not like you have to. But when that habit, say, becomes a preference, then it's like, there's no incentive to really try to revert back to this previous state.
Yeah. So I think a fix to that.
What I'm saying is.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, because you asked the question at the beginning and then went into it, and you actually answered some of it in your own. But I think first off, realizing that you've learned these things from your parents. Second off, I think really going into the trauma of it. I told you before, I've done like hypnotherapy and stuff, or you go into situations or really facing the fear, stuff like that. That's really, but I think really experiencing what it is you went through and trying to find, okay, where was it that I've picked up this habit? If it's not me, or did I myself generate this? Which is oftentimes no. These beings are in and of themselves perfect, and we merely just take on habit, or we do habitual practices that really end up doing nothing but bolstering the ego and the mindset. And it's really sitting and meditating and, okay, this one time I saw, my family arguing, or I saw domestic abuse in my house, or, I saw adultery, or, I heard them having sex. Really going into those situations, which are really weird for you to do now at this, because you push them away. And it's like, okay, that's why I'm so protective of people, because I'm protecting my brothers. Or that's why I started cursing, because I never cursed as a kid, but now I'm able to and I'm allowed to.
Right. Now is it possible that it's very difficult to figure out exactly where this might, because say if I'm thinking about this, man, say I walked in on my parents having sex, you said, which I did actually, and but I didn't really, even at that time, I didn't really think much of it, and I still don't. Like, you know what I mean? I was just like, I guess they're doing what they do, like, I mean? It wasn't like life changing.
I think it did change you up, though. I'll tell you how too, because we're the same in this, I think.
All right. Let's hear it.
And maybe this will help, because I do think the only way you can get to that place is if there's somebody outside. Like, maybe this is the reason. So I started understanding and hearing and seeing sex very, very, very young, and that made me in my youth and teenage years, and now, a very sexual person. Almost so to where I started collecting it to where I believed love is nothing without this sexual act, and I must perform this act very well for you, and I will do it well for you. This is how I serve you. This is how I love you. Because I've seen my mom and dad and my uncles having porn on the table, and my grandparents. This is what adults do, right? This is love, right?
Right. Okay. 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 So
And even now, I know it's
didn't
not,
know.
but
I
that's
think
in me. Yeah.
right. Right now, I think with your uncles having porn on the table in front of you, I want to talk about this just a
Let's go.
little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Um, what was this a multiple instance or how? What exactly was the scenario?
Yeah, so
And then
I'll get into that.
what do you think your takeaway is?
Yeah, so we right around the corner is where my uncle lived, my mom's brother, and we'd always go to his house. He was living.
Sorry for that interruption, fam. Dirk laptop died, but we are back, and we're gonna get right back into this conversation. So Dirk was just explaining his situation with his uncles, and I was actually saying that I too started watching porn at a very, very young age,
Mhm.
and that was through I had a laptop when I was 8 or 9, and it started off with just typing boobs in on Google image search. and
Yep, I was
then
learning all the words. I have the filthiest mind right now.
yeah, and the thing is interesting because I don't ever remember a time as a child when I wasn't attracted to women that I perceived like very very hot and that sort of thing. Like I remember when I was 4 years old watching Britney Spears come on at like a VMAs, and me and my brother were both kissing the screen. We were like, "Oh, she's so hot!" Like, you know what I mean? So there was never a time when this sexual attraction didn't um didn't exist, and the fact that I had internet access and my own computer, like, you know what I'm saying? But in regard to because Dirk was suggesting that the possibility of the amount of sexual interaction you might have been exposed to through your parents or other older family members might have caused him to be a more sexual person. Now, me personally, I don't know if that's necessarily the case because, like I said, I did at one point walk in on my parents having sex, which I thought nothing of and still think nothing of. However, just from looking back on it, in my experience, I had always been a sexual person. I was, you know,
Of
kissing
course,
girls in
because you're
every grade. I
exposed to
was
porn,
always
though.
like
You
very
see what I mean, though? We were exposed to a certain amount of
no,
sexuality
but I
very young.
was to porn yet in
Yeah,
first
yeah.
grade. Like I was, I was
That's what I'm
doing I
saying.
was
That
doing
adds.
naughty things before I had seen. Well,
No,
no,
that's
no,
what
I
I'm
was doing
saying.
naughty
Yeah, yeah.
things before I'd seen it. Like so,
Yeah, I'm
so
saying,
how do
yeah.
you think that relates to your parents? I think that's more just like a human nature thing. What do you think?
I don't think it's human nature as much as, of course, we all have a certain amount of sexuality, but the ability in which we're able to explore it is based on parenting, 100%. Some kids are completely sheltered from it, which is why they say cooties and all
Now,
that stuff.
now,
I was never scared of
can you
cooties.
elaborate
Yeah,
more on this?
yeah, of course. So going into
Yeah, can you
it,
tell?
yeah.
Yeah.
On what specifically? You about to say something?
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah, on
Uh huh.
the you're saying parenting alludes
Yeah.
to this sexuality. I want you to expand a little
Yeah.
bit more on that.
So let's
On
go
that
sexuality, let's go
emphasis.
drugs, let's go all of that, alcohol and everything like that. So, for instance, I didn't party that
Okay.
much in school because that was never around me. My family wasn't really big into drinking or weed or anything really until I started drinking in college, and that was my own exploration. We didn't cuss when we were kids because that wasn't around me. There wasn't a lot of cussing or anything. What was around me in in droves was sex, a lot of that, and also we weren't sheltered as much with the movies we were able to watch. We were allowed to watch a certain amount of movies. They would say close your eyes, we would just open them anyways. And then on top of that, with our conversations with my family and parents, they were very open with what sex was, and I knew and understood it at a very young age. And they also told me the consequences very young. So that being said, my exploration with sex was a lot more advanced than I would say any other exploration I've had with other things like alcohol or drugs or even traveling the world and adventuring. Because what was around me and what was right in front of me was porn, was movies, was Britney Spears and all this stuff. And part of that, of course, is the culture I live in. But most of it, of course, comes down to parenting. My mom was at work most of the time. She wasn't able to watch us 24/7 like some parents are with, two parent household. Me and my brothers got into a lot of trouble
Right.
very
Yeah, I
young
would
with
say
sex.
most parents are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't watch these motherfuckers all day.
Well,
Like,
well,
but
I would say
go
it's
ahead.
different when it's a two-parent household, which is very interesting. And as a kid, when I would go over to my friends' houses, who the mom might have been there consistently, or the dad was there consistently, or the mom worked at night and the dad worked in day, and there was always someone there watching. I had a lot of times where I was the one cooking for the my brothers, and I was the one making sure I was walking them home from school and stuff like that. And I had a lot of free time, and free time is the devil's playground. And with me particularly, I liked girls like you did, and I had access to see more of what girls were because I didn't have physical access to seeing naked girls. Then all that added in my exploration with how it is I want to treat women. And luckily it wasn't, I didn't learn sex in an abusive manner. See, guys who go through what we went through, Shane, seeing porn very young, those are also telltale signs of serial killers and rapists. And I'm happy that I had a certain amount of leeway, but there's a certain amount of discipline around that. I had parameters where I couldn't go past, you know? I don't know how that was for you. I don't know if your family set certain amount of parameters around that. Because
parameters meaning what?
So here we go. So I once got up my phone bill before phones had internet on them. You had to pay for each minute of internet. I put that thing up to $1,000 in a month because I was watching porn.
Oh,
my mom knew that.
God, that's a big grounded alert.
Oh yeah. So there were certain parameters, and realizing actually as I got into this age, I didn't realize. So my dad was addicted to porn. My brother, my uncles were. A lot of my mother's, people she would hang out with were. So even though I might not have seen it directly, people around me all were invested in porn, and we should have a whole nother topic on this another time. But porn, and your relationship with it, especially if you're a young man, is not a very healthy thing, especially when our minds are being melted. So that being said, I've gotten caught multiple times in what I was doing. So my mother, being the mother she is, she could have done one or two things. And I think the way she handled it and the way my dad handled it after finding out was very helpful. They didn't shame me. And I think that is the switch. I never felt shamed as a kid. I did have a lot of expectations, which were hard for me. And that will go into that trauma after. But I think my relationship with sex was never a shameful one. And so that made the exploration of it a bit healthier. I don't know how it was for you. I don't know if you had talks with your parents about sex and about reproduction and about how your parents do have sex at that age specifically. So
with my mom, it was always different than with my dad. Because I remember when I was about like 3 or 4 years old. Because at this point, my dad had already told me, like guys have a penis and women have a vagina, all this sort of stuff. Like I already knew.
You learned it young, which is good.
And I learned it young, and but they didn't explicitly tell me what sex was, but I just figured, like, obviously, like you just put this one in this one. I asked my mom about it, and she was like, oh, like she didn't reply, she didn't give me a straight answer, but I asked my dad, he was like, that's pretty much what happens. Like the guy just so it was like it was like my mom was always trying not to tell me like the full story or give me the full rundown, or just be like, oh, you shouldn't be asking about that, you shouldn't like worry about that. But my dad was kind of just like, like you know what I'm saying, kind of not really encouraging, but just giving me like real information, like, you know what I'm saying.
That's interesting, because
so there was always that.
No, I was just gonna say that's interesting.
If I got like caught watching.
Keep going.
Yeah, so my brother once got caught watching porn, and then my parents were like, "Oh, well, Shane must be doing this too if his brother's doing this." And I was like, "Yeah, they put a parent block on my shit, and I taught my little brother how to get around it." But it's interesting because I had two parents are kind of in the same household at the time that were telling me different things about it, but I too never really felt shameful for doing it. Like I was like, this is, I know that like, this is how the majority of the world is getting down, so I'm not, I was like, fuck it. Like
is let's go.
That
Let's
was
stay
kind
there, because
okay.
so like because then of course pornography leads into of course sex and self stimulation and stuff like that. So on that note though, that's where the discipline came, because I grew up very 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 Christian. So masturbation and sex like at that age directly were probably more harmful to me in my mind because of how my family treated it versus the pornography itself. But then that switched directly as soon as I got out of high school, because my dad and uncle and my mom, everybody encouraged me to have sex with as many people as possible and not to end up like them. So I went from a place of hardcore
Hold on.
discipline.
What do you mean
Yeah,
not to? What do you mean not to end up like them? What is that?
because so they all got married young. So they wanted me to explore.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Okay.
they all
Like, yo,
yeah, they all got married young, and they wanted
Okay.
me to not do that. I was the first person to start going to an actual university, and they wanted to me. That hasn't happened before, so they encouraged me to go have sex with people and to be a partner, but to be safe.
Okay.
But that's coming on the back end of
That's nice.
don't masturbate and don't have sex and don't have premarital and all these things. So it's interesting because my floodgates opened as soon as college. I can tell is my turning point of life, because I started drinking, I started going out, started smoking, started partying, started being a serial sex person. Wow, that sounded like so a serial sex person. I liked one night stands and stuff like that. I wanted, but it was less of for I want to do it because I've never done it before. More of
Right.
what is this? Because I've only heard about it, and really my family wasn't that party state. I was the first person to do that. So that's a weird thing too, because being raised where no one was like that was kind of a good thing for me, because I didn't have to meet any standards. It's sort of me being a kid again. I don't know how it was for you though, because you're telling me how your mom didn't really talk about it, and your dad did.
Yeah.
What was your turn? Yeah.
My mom would very much discourage me from the hanky. Like if I ever had a girl guest over while my parents still lived together, or even when because I had times where I lived with both my parents, and times where I lived with just my dad, and times where I lived with just my mom.
Yeah.
And, whenever my mom was involved, if I had a female friend over, she'd be like, "Oh, keep the door open." All this.
Same.
And,
High school, right?
And she would. Oh,
yeah.
And the thing is, she high school and middle school, and she would
Yeah.
be like, like, "Oh, don't have sex." But I'd be like, at this point, especially by like 7th grade, I was like, "I'm fucking doing that shit." Like, I don't give a fuck what she talking about. Like, I'm definitely doing that. Like, and I didn't have sex in 7th grade, but like, if I had the opportunity, I would have. So, so it's kind of just like, because at that point, my dad had already like, having that difference in parenting. I think, it kind of gave me what I feel like the ability to be like, hey, like my dad says not a big deal. My mom's tripping. I'm a fuck with it, because it's like, and this was at a time when my parents' marriage was starting to go like apart. You know what I'm saying? And so I wouldn't even say it's necessarily that I'm really picking a side, but I definitely, in terms of living with and whose rules I like better, it was definitely my dad's. And I thought he was looser. I thought he was more realistic.
Why do you like him better?
Not to have sex.
That's interesting. Why do you feel like you like this better? Yeah.
Because I feel like he was more real. He was keeping it real with me. Like, he wasn't like, oh, don't have sex, because I'm going to do it anyway. Like,
do you think though it's not more realistic? Do you think it's just more like your personality type that you are now?
Well, no, because the thing is, I have a lot of personality traits from my mom.
Okay.
It's like, I feel like I'm a real nice, even mix of both. But when it comes to doing things that I want to do,
the way you live your life.
Person, if I want to do it, I'm gonna do it. Like,
the way you live your life. Yeah.
So if I have someone who's telling me you can't do this versus someone who's saying make sure you wrap it up, I'm just gonna wrap it up. Like, you know what I mean? It's not. And so, I found that, being the type of person I am, which is, I would say, outwardly defiant, just like I was saying before, regardless of who was telling me what, if I really didn't agree with it, I wasn't doing it.
Do you think that comes from the discipline of our family? Because you and I are very free now, but I've been a very disciplined human for most of my life. Do you think that's a
Yeah. Now I don't want to say
yeah, yeah.
I don't want to say that I was undisciplined because I feel like I'm a very disciplined person. Like my
Yeah.
in terms of like my work ethic, like
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. Like it's just that when it comes to when I would have a moral or ethical um,
Mm-hmm.
disagreement with someone, because the only reason why I would be defiant, so to speak, is because I think that morally what you're saying goes against my moral value and code, and I think when I look at it and I kind of step back, I can see that because my parents had this difference in how they would do things, kind of allowed me to be here in the middle, and this middle ground is where that uh that alignment came from, because I'm able to see, okay, well, he thinks this way, she thinks this way,
How
I
does that
think
make you
this way.
feel though
So
that you learned your ethics and morals from two people who more or less disagree? What do you think that does to the idea of morals and ethics?
right, and that's what I'm getting at. It made it very it allowed for nuance, which allowed a person like myself to really choose what I thought was morally correct, because I didn't have to just go with one, because I would have
How does
an
that make you
aunt
feel? That
who's
statement you
very
just said, that I can choose what's morally correct. What is that statement? How does that really make you feel though? If you really think about that. Because
um
then now we think about the world.
it make
Everybody gets to pick and choose their morals and ethics.
right. It makes me feel empowered. It makes me feel like it makes me feel good that I had the opportunity to see uh the variance in morals, where I would have like people that are more loose here, like say my dad, and then all the way up to my mom, and then the woman who raised my mom, my aunt, and kind of where it's like very strict and versus very like more loose. Not necessarily it's like do whatever you want, but it's just looser. It's not
You know
necessarily
what it made me
you
feel?
can't do this.
It made me realize the
What
world
would you
isn't
think?
as dogmatic as it was growing up. And then it really made me destroy the idea of ethics and morals. And I really don't agree with those two thought processes as philosophies in and of themselves anymore. And it made me really lost. Because if ethics and morals don't exist because they're just made up and everybody can choose their own, and if they're not made by
Mm-hmm.
uh this oneness of God because everybody picks and chooses their idea of God,
Mm-hmm.
not real,
Mm-hmm.
essence or oneness, then
Mm-hmm.
was what I was taught or living a waste? No, that wasn't it because that's
Mm-hmm.
what I used to believe. Okay, then is everybody just trying? Okay, yes. Well, then if everybody's trying, why is it that they're making this so dogmatic? Because not even that they're trying, it's their beliefs are really just trying to pour them into somebody. Now, thankful,
Right.
my mom's a person who said I never wanted to live through you, and she never did. And she let us do what we wanted to as soon as we became adults. She could have kept being that person. So, that being said, though, we all learn our ethics and our morals from our parents, and then we go around the world parading them as if anyone doesn't believe them or listens to them, like you said, in relationships especially, we become
Mm-hmm.
argumentative and combative and really turn into warmongers, especially if we get some power in the world. Isn't that scary?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Now,
terrifying?
it's not terrifying. And
Why not?
here's why. I think well, just because I'm really not afraid of it.
Well, I'm not saying that you and I
um
are afraid. I'm saying in and of itself, that's not a system that
mhm.
works. It's flawed.
Yes, as as
Yes.
as most systems are. Um, and I kind of want to retort and bring it back
Yeah.
just a
Yeah. Yeah.
little bit, because as I kind of expand, and I'm looking back originally to the original question, which was,
Yeah.
how's your relationship with your parents uh, say about, what does it say about you? And as I think, and I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
well, now I'm thinking, not only did my parents have difference in opinions on how I should behave with young women, but also difference in opinion on religion. I remember I was extremely studious about religion because honestly, I didn't believe it when I was
Mm-hmm.
a kid. Like my mom was super religious, kind of forced it down my throat, and I was always like, this doesn't sound like facts. Like, and so I would spend a lot of time like doing research, and I would ask my parents these deep theological or existential questions, and I would get I would ask them separately. I get different answers from them both. Like I'd be
Did
like,
your dad agree
so
with your
there's this
mom?
well, they had difference in opinions. They felt differently about the same questions.
Let's stay there. That's where it is. That's what's consistent right now with you. And I think that's where it is. What is that your parents disagreed on merely everything? How did that make you? Because you didn't see true agreements. Not
everything. There were many.
No, I'm just saying like the most things,
there
like
many
religion and stuff.
Yeah.
Because my parents did agree on religion.
Yeah, so
they agreed on all those main things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how did that shape you though?
So I think it shaped me to the point where I realized that everything is really subjective, and the way people are judging is basically based on their limited point of view, or maybe their large point of view. But just because one person thinks this way doesn't mean that you have to. It doesn't mean that they both can't have a good point. And I think that kind of is what helped me able to sort of be who I am today, a person who breaks free from necessarily societal constructs, because I did ask my parents all these different questions, and I did have to deal with these different styles of parenting in different situations. So I kind of got to see like, okay, well, they think about it this way, but they think about it this way. I mean, that doesn't really make either correct, doesn't really make either wrong, but I don't have to see it one way or another. I can see it this way.
Did you think of that though when you were a child? Because I can see Shane right now thinking that way, because you are smart, you are intellectual right now. How does little kid Shane, who's supposed to be taking care of, feel?
Now I was confused, but in that confusion, I did not allow it to.
Let's stay there. I like that.
In that confusion, I did not allow it to make me feel small. I used that confusion as a hunch and just looked for answers, because, like I was telling you, I'm very.
Where'd you find those answers?
And especially, I did, and I was able to come up with my own conclusion in all my research, because I was so I got the preacher telling me this, I got my aunt telling me this, I got my mom telling me this, my dad telling me this, and they're all a little bit different. Now I'm looking it up, and I'm looking up some shit, and I'm seeing some shit that's different than everything that y'all just even said. I'm seeing some shit that actually says what y'all said isn't even facts. So you know what I'm saying? So it's
do you think that made you frustrated that you did everything yourself? Do you think that made you frustrated as a kid? Because you couldn't find answers from anything but you.
I think.
Isn't that interesting?
Right. I think I'm grateful, and here's why. Because
of course now, yeah. Of course you're grateful now.
I can. What that taught me as a kid is I can come up with my own answers.
Of course,
like,
but
they know a little bit more than I know. You know what I'm saying?
But you as a kid, I'm saying, how did you feel right now? Like let's go back to Shane's confused about fucking life, and no one can help him or give him the answer. Why not? Why can't anybody give me the answer? I'm asking for help. I'm a kid, you know?
Right. And it brought me to the conclusion, there is no answer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people act like they have the answer, and they act big and grandiose, like this is what it is, but no one really knows. Like,
no one knows shit.
I think,
especially our parents.
And I think when I figured that out at a young age, that no one really knows, I realized. And that's kind of probably what made me even more defiant, because I probably wasn't very defiant before then.
That's where it is. That's what I wanted to hear.
Once I realized that no one has the answers, and everyone's just bases shit off their experiences and how they feel, then I was like, all right, well, I'll do however the fuck I want, because what do you know? Like,
and that's where I find you, and that's where we find solace. There's a lot of times I felt alone, even though I had everyone around me, because no one was either thinking the way I was or asking the right questions. And there would be times I'd be fucking crying and shit, because this is the real stuff. This is why I was asking you. As a kid, when you feel alone, it's terrifying, because you rely on your parents to take care of you and protect you from the big bad world. And that time where you start feeling alone is the time you start really growing up. And that's scary, especially as a man, because now I have to do this shit my own. No one can really help me, and I just want somebody to help me, and I'm alone, and the world's mean, and see, now either right there you can crawl into yourself and be a victim and die, or you can learn how to do yourself. But coming with that, then I grew a chip on my shoulder, and I became defiant, and I started doing things my way, because no one can do it better than me.
Right. Facts.
Isn't that? But that's trauma right there. I do
that's
everything my
trauma,
way.
but it's trauma I like.
It is. I mean, it makes me very.
it,
It makes me
it,
very dogmatic. It makes me very efficient. It makes me very intellectual, and
yeah,
I don't have time for that emotional shit because I'm trying to get this done. But really, under that's a very emotionally
yeah.
scarred little kid.
Yeah, but you know what? The fact
Yeah.
that we're even exploring it and letting that emotional
Yep.
scarred little kid come out and play, I think that's
Yeah.
uh that's where the true growth is. Because when you look
Yep.
at it, even
Hmm.
though there is trauma underlying that, and there was hurt and
Hmm.
frustration and confusion
That's how
and
you
all these
grow.
things, that confusion has helped. Yeah, it helped
Yep.
usher you to be the person where you are today, sitting here
Exactly.
and reflecting on it for other people to grow from. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, uh, so like I said, yes, it was frustrating as a kid because I'm like, yo, why the fuck is she saying this and he's saying it? But then
Y'all
as
supposed to
now,
agree.
yeah, yeah, and then now, here I am, and I feel like I'm in
Hmm.
just one of the best positions to win because I have this knowledge and this
Yeah.
understanding and this willingness to reflect and share and
Can
shit.
I comment on
So
right you just said right there? Because I think what helped me heal
yeah,
that little kid was accepting and forgiving my parents. Because I feel like a lot of people don't ever forgive their parents. Because we do blame our parents for a lot
yes,
of things
yes,
that we don't realize we blame them for. But
right, right, right.
they tried their best and they had no idea, just like we had no idea.
Yeah,
Could they have tried something different? Maybe, but we had no idea how to communicate that to them. They didn't know how to listen to us. And
hmm,
I'm thankful for all those experiences because I am the successful being I am today, just like you are.
right, right.
But we've been able to forgive our parents, and I'm sure there's more healing
Yeah,
we need to do. I mean, like I need to have a day at my dad where we
yeah,
just go out in the woods, you know?
yeah. And you know what? The thing is, they
Yeah.
gave it a go, and I'm really not mad at them. I mean,
What can I be mad for? You know, I'm alive still. That's all I can ask. They didn't kill me.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just I think when people are
Yeah.
able to not only accept
Yeah.
but accept, forgive, and then apply, because
Yeah.
there's a lesson in these acceptings and these
Yeah.
uh in these traumas, and if you can go through and be like, okay, here's what I can learn from, here's what I can apply, here's how I can be better, here's what I can do
Yeah.
differently, and when you're able to take it upon yourself and just you know let it be washed, I think uh you'll be like us two in a position. You'll be in a position to win
Yeah.
automatically.
At the end of the day, and you know, the interesting thing about it is because you stated a question at the beginning: how does one realize what they're even suffering from as kids?
Yeah.
Literally, this conversation is exactly how you realize. Because okay, we talk about this thing. Okay, let's stick on that. All right. Well, I do it because of this. Okay, let's stick there. Oh wow,
Yeah.
yeah, my parents did do that. I do feel this way. That's why I'm this way now. And more people
Yeah.
need to do that. It's like the conversation we had yesterday, though. No one is self-realizing or self-actualizing or being
Hmm.
mindful or medicating or self-caring anything. They're just a ball of hurting more people. And that's the thing I
Hmm.
was talking about. That's terrifying. The idea that you can just go around
Oh,
this
okay.
world
Yeah.
and really do, that's the terrifying thing. There's a lot of balls of anger and hate and
Ah.
sadness
Okay.
rolling around. And
Hmm.
no, there's no healing being done. There's a lot of trying to fix things. You can't fix shit if you're not fixed.
Right. Right.
That's
Right.
terrifying.
So
Yeah.
so what I wanna urge
Mm,
our beautiful listeners to do is to go ahead and talk with one of your best dogs, your homies,
the
your
squad.
beautiful actor friends, and
You're the
and
pretty one here.
really just really just get shucks, really just get deep and allow yourself this space. You don't have to record it for anybody, but like because when we started off, like Dirk was saying, I was really unsure exactly where this was gonna go. But as we got through it, as we kept, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? Then we both got to a place of, hey, you know what? This right here actually shaped me in this way, and now we have quite a lot to reflect on and quite a
And it's
lot
actually very
to think
similar.
about.
the things we went through. We would have never realized how similar. And that's also reflecting on why it is we are friends in the first place. Because we see the world very similarly.
Right.
We
right,
went
right.
through a lot of the same thing. So
Right,
we
right.
recognize that in each other.
Mm-hmm.
And game recognizes game at the end of the day. And because of that,
Yeah.
you help me heal, I help you heal. Literally through just this one conversation and through multiple.
Right. Right, and as we continue to have these conversations and build on these ideas, because we
Yeah.
touched on a lot of things that we're going to expand on in later episodes, guys. But
Oh yeah.
when you have a person you can confide in, a loved one, a good friend, you can have these deep conversations and expand. That's going to help you grow. It's going to help you become a better person. At which point you'll be able to help others.
Absolutely.
Which is something that I hope this conversation here just did for y'all. So,
Fuck yeah.
but we are not. Oh, we are. Not,
I got it. We are not therapists, because that's exactly what this situation felt like. We were therapizing each other. So tell me more about that.
we are not Sigmund Freud, and we have no ink blotches.
Absolutely not. We are not experts on childhood trauma. We can just merely experience with you all at the same time you're experiencing. This is unedited. This is unfiltered.
We are done with this episode. So.
Oh yeah, fucking finally.
Y'all think?
All right. And get this done. You say the goodbye first. You say goodbye. All right, we out. Deuces, everybody. All right, stop. All right, we're gonna Frankenstein that episode. I will say, Shane, your video got so bad on Zencaster. Can you see it?
It looked good on my end.
Oh, it is so fuzzy right now. So, I mean, it doesn't matter because people just need to hear us at the end of the day. Literally some of the biggest podcasters, they have some shitty footage too. But
Okay.
I do believe we should go back to squad.
Okay.
Or if not, what we can start doing as well is I'm going to make you get... Well, actually... No, I have another way too later. Next time we do our next recording, I have another thing we could do too. We're just going to keep trying out everything.
All right. Yeah.
But yeah, your video...
Maybe I could grab this video and see if it's any different on my end than yours.
The thing is, though, if you grab the video, we're just going to have to do that whole split screen thing again, and it's just going to be a pain in the ass. Versus, because I already have the whole thing recorded here, you know?